Hello, and let's talk about the protests in Delhi. The Indian government may be completely focused on impressing Donald Trump, but the people of Delhi have something else on their minds. The weekend saw protests breaking out in several parts of the city over the CAA, NPR and NRC. As we know, continuous protests have been going on in many parts of Delhi for months, the most famous site being Shaheen Bagh. And there have been many who have been wondering how long will this momentum last. The weekend's protest demonstrated that this issue is going to go nowhere, and that there is no wall that the government can build which can hide this issue. Over the past few hours, we have also got reports of violent mobs in many of these sites, causing violence and provocations. The police response to many of these incidents was also brutal. There were incidents of lathi charge and tear gas being fired. We'll be discussing this in detail, but first, here is a look at some footage from the protests yesterday.
एक्चुअली देखिए, आपको भी पता है एनआरसी और सीएए को लेकर और दूसरा जो आरक्षण को लेकर हमने ये मिल करके ये फैसला लिया था कि हम आज भारत बंद का कॉल देंगे, तो भारत बंद है। और उसी के साथ जैसे कि एनआरसी और सीएए का प्रोटेस्ट तो हमारा जारी ही रहेगा और जारी ही है। लेकिन हमारे साथ जो दलित हैं, हिंदू भाई, सभी लोग आप देख रहे होंगे, सभी लोग आकर के हमारे साथ जुड़ रहे हैं, क्योंकि उनको भी पता है कि ऐसा जो हमारा फंडामेंटल राइट्स है, जो हमारा मानव अधिकार है, जो कानून हमें अधिकार देता है, उसके साथ कैसे कोई भी गवर्नमेंट आकर छेड़छाड़ कर सकती है। और आप सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट से जब पूछा जाता है तो बोलते हैं कि स्टेट गवर्नमेंट जो है, राज्य की सरकार ये फैसला लेगी, तो आप ये फैसला राज्य सरकार पर क्यों छोड़ रहे हैं? सुप्रीम कोर्ट इस पर ध्यान से काम करे और वो ये फैसला ले कि ये जो मानव अधिकार है, ये जो फंडामेंटल,
आप रिजर्वेशन की बात करें।
जी, मैं उसी की बात कर रही हूँ। तो रिजर्वेशन के ऊपर देखिए, ये उनको सोचना पड़ेगा, जो मानव अधिकार है उसको ऐसे राज्य सरकार पे नहीं छोड़ सकते। ये फंडामेंटल कानून जो अधिकार देता है उस पर सोच विचार करना पड़ेगा और अपनी राय उनको बदलनी पड़ेगी। राज्य गवर्नमेंट इस पर फैसला नहीं लेगी।
फिर भी वो लोग लाठी चला रहे हैं, हमारे मोबाइल छीन लिए गए, हमारे साथ बदतमीजी करी गई, जहाँ मतलब इस तरीके से पकड़ रहे हैं कि हमें अच्छा नहीं लग रहा है। तो ये चीज़ हमें बिल्कुल भी उनकी पसंद नहीं है। हमें अपने उसके लिए गए थे ना, हमारा हक है जी, है संविधान बचाना हमारा हक है।
कहीं से कोई इरादा किसी का कहीं कोई ऐसा था, बिल्कुल हम लोग बैठने वाले थे कि अब अंदर आके बैठ जाएंगे। यहाँ अनाउंस में ये हो रहा था कि अब बैठने जा रहे हैं।
To talk more about the latest developments as well as the protests yesterday, we have with us Pranjal. Pranjal, thank you for joining us. Pranjal, so could you first talk about what is the latest information we've received? We understand that NewsClick's reporters are on the ground at many of these sites, and what is happening right now?
See, till now we have sent one reporter to Chandbagh, an area that is in east part of the Delhi, where the sit-in protest has been going on for 30 days, close to 30 days. Another reporter is on his way to Maujpur and Zafrabad area, where the mobilization actually started on Saturday night.
Right.
As per the reports which we have got till now, we don't have details of it, but our reporter in our last call has told us that close to a group of 50 to 100 people having lathis in their hands are chanting offensive slogans and are on a basically quote-unquote rampage mode. And there has been a report of stone pelting. I think there are visuals available. We haven't verified those visuals, but there are visuals available of few vehicles being torched to fire. So this is what is happening right now.
Right.
But as I said, we really don't have details of it. We're trying to get in touch with our reporter, and as soon as things develop, we'll get back on
Right. So to take a step back and look at the protests over the weekend, like we said, we've seen some protest sites which have been going on where the protests have been going on for quite some time. And there's also the case of Shaheen Bagh, where the court itself seems to be pushing for some sort of, not maybe some sort of a compromise at least. But now we have new protest sites breaking out. So what is also, could you talk a bit about the context of these protests also, the news sites especially?
See, first of all, let's look at how the protest started yesterday and why did it start. The Bhim Army had given a call for a nationwide bandh, one on the issue of reservation, which the Supreme Court had passed its judgment close to a week or 2 weeks back. But the kind of mobilization that has happened has also happened because these multiple protest sites in Delhi, I think I can name 7 or 8 of them at least, have been going on for months, at least a month. Starting from Shaheen Bagh, Chand Bagh, Hosrani, Maujpur, Zafrabad started on Saturday night. Then you have Majboor Colony, Turkman Gate, all these things. Now, there's a group of women, a large group of women sitting on protest and raising just one question that you can't take our constitutional rights back from us and you can't ask us to prove our citizenship when our years and years of our generations have stayed here, right? So that's the basic concern that I get from people when I was reporting from Hosrani yesterday. Now, when this has been happening and there has been no response from the government, apart from what Supreme Court is trying to do in Shaheen Bagh, and the government has been pushing that this area, that road should be vacated. However, Wazahat Habibullah, one of the interlocutors, has also submitted an affidavit in the Supreme Court saying that the road blockade is not due to the protesters, it's due to the Delhi and the Uttar Pradesh police. Right. So when all these things are happening and there's no dialogue happening with the protesters, on the call of Bhim Army, they got a chance to actually come out on streets and assert their demands. So this is what my personal understanding is. This is what has happened and why all of suddenly this protest has broken out in different parts of Delhi. But Prashant, before we move further, let's make one thing very clear, because I was also reporting from Hosrani and I was coordinating with all the 6 reporters who we had in Delhi yesterday. The protesters were very clear. We are not going to cause any harm to people. We are not going to cause any harm to public property and roads. We just want a fair dialogue. And there was a continuous appeal of peace which was being made from all the platforms that protesters were there. So this we have to keep in mind. There was no provocation on part of the protesters.
And the last couple of days have been especially significant because we are also seeing a counter mobilization, so to speak, and a very aggressive one. And we hadn't seen so much of this prior to the election. There were more instances of so-called lone gunmen coming out and creating this thing. But what we are seeing now is something slightly different. Is that the sense you're getting also?
See, definitely, I agree with you there. But when you have 100 people and somebody like Kapil Mishra, who fought elections on a BJP ticket, coming out in Maujpur and saying that you have 3 days to vacate the road, otherwise we will do what we want to do. That's a very clear message that he has given. Now the question is the Home Ministry, the police department in Delhi comes under the Home Ministry, which is the central government, and Amit Shah is the Home Minister. Now there could be various questions that could be asked. Is the Home Ministry, Delhi Police and government giving tacit support to it? We don't know. Why are they not speaking anything on it? We don't know. So this silence that is there, that is something which is really worrying. Right under your nose, all these things are happening. And let's not take sides. I'm not taking any sides. When there are reports of alleged stone pelting, reports are there that this happened from both the sides. Right. Now, if Delhi police is there, if you are, as we have seen in the past 1 month, that on protest side, they have usually arrested youths, primarily Muslim youths, when they were protesting, then it's also your responsibility to arrest these people who are shouting offensive slogans. They have lathis in their hand. It's a clear evidence. Why no action is being taken on that? Is there a continuous push that is being made after election to polarize the issue a bit more? I think definitely yes. This can clearly be seen as a attempt to polarize this entire issue and actually portray in a manner that, okay, this is a section of people who are against CAA, but it's only a small section. And instead of raising their demands, they're causing more harm to public property and the day-to-day running of the city. So this kind of sentiment is being actually created on the ground. And people are coming out against those protesters also. Yes.
Thank you so much, Pramit. It looks like we have a difficult situation ahead, especially over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, but Prashant, just before we conclude, that one thing we have to clearly keep in our mind, that these protests have been going on for close to 1 month,
Right.
and they have been a peaceful protest. Right. So this entire rumor mongering that has been happening on social media, WhatsApp, Facebook, if you scroll through it, that how people are saying provocative things that we'll get this done in 3 days, we'll get all of it clear in 2 days. So it's a clear attempted effort from one section of the society, clearly right wing, which has been doing it. Has there been any response from the side of protesters? No. They have been continuously raising sane voices saying that we are fighting for the constitution and will fight it in a non-violent, peaceful way.
Absolutely.
And that's the appeal that they have been making.
Right. Thank you so much, Pranjal. Moving on to our next story, if you were disappointed that we were not going to talk about the Trump visit, don't be, because there's no way we're leaving out the Donald on this show. Today's highlight was Trump tugging at a charka at the Sabarmati ashram. The man has probably never moved a finger for any kind of manual work. But hey, if Gandhi is dead and if the RSS can appropriate him, why not Trump? On a more serious note, activists and concerned citizens staged a protest in New Delhi on a call given by the All India Peace and Solidarity Organization, one of the few voices of sanity in these times. Here is some footage from the protests.
The All India Peace and Solidarity Organization is organizing the protest today. Basically, for many reasons. One, to expose the ideological affinity between Modi and Trump. They share similar ideological traits. One, which is anti-worker. Both of them are reforming labor laws. It might be the federal government at the states in the United States, or it is a parliament in India. They are against the indigenous people. They are against the growth of indigenous agriculture. They are against the public ownership of patent. They are against the free availability of medicine. So these are some of the traits that they share on economic issues. Apart from that, both of them share an inherent bias against women, against Muslims. They share Islamophobia, and they are against migrants. So it is for these reasons that we are organizing protests throughout the country. Apart from the reasons why Indians should oppose Trump's visit, we have a big international responsibility also to fulfill. One, Trump is against all the sovereign countries asserting for their own rights.
आज अमेरिका चाहता है कि हिंदुस्तान अफगानिस्तान में अपनी फोर्स लेके जाए और वो वहां से विड्रॉ कर रहा है। लड़ाई का माहौल पाकिस्तान हिंदुस्तान के जो लड़ाई भी होती है उधर F-16 ये बॉम्बर्स दे रहा है और हिंदुस्तान को भी इधर हथियार खरीदने पर मजबूर कर रहा है। अगर हिंदुस्तान एक यहाँ हुक्मरान अगर रूस से या और दूसरे मुल्कों से हथियार लाते हैं जो लेटेस्ट टेक्नोलॉजी के ऊपर बेस्ड है या जो टेक्नोलॉजी भी ट्रांसफर करते हैं, उनकी बजाय अमेरिका ये डिक्टेट कर रहा है कि आप अपने अधिकार जो हथियार हैं आप इन मुल्कों से नहीं खरीदोगे, क्योंकि वो चाहता है कि उसकी जो अलायंस है वो ऐसे बढ़े जिससे कि चाइना, रशिया और जो दूसरी कंट्रीज हैं उनके साथ जो वॉर का खतरा है सबसे बड़ा। याद रखिए, जनता के हित में है शांति। हम चाहते हैं कि दुनिया के अंदर पीस हो। हम पीस एंड सॉलिडेरिटी की बात करते हैं। हम चाहते हैं कि दुनिया के अंदर वॉर नहीं हो। अगर वॉर होगी या लोकल वॉर भी होगी तो उसका नुकसान सबसे ज्यादा गरीब जनता को होगा।
And staying with the theme, last week saw a development which, while expected, was nonetheless strange and even confusing. The United States and the Taliban struck a ceasefire deal, which is a prelude to a full-fledged peace agreement. Yes, you heard that right, the US and the Taliban. The very same Taliban which the US helped drive out of power 19 years ago as part of the war on terror. A lot of blood has flown under the bridge since then, but it looks like the old enemies are now partners. In order to decipher this development, we have with us Abdul. Abdul, thanks for joining us. So we talked about this earlier, but still it remains a surprise. So how did the US and Taliban, after all this history, suddenly become partners?
I think this is not sudden. It was going on for at least half
2018.
year and a half. Yeah. So in between there was a break in September when the Afghanistan elections were about to happen.
Right.
Before that there was a break, but the talks resumed in December again. So this is going on for quite long. And why it is happening? Primarily because the US does not get could not basically come out from the war, which it thinks now under Trump that thinks that it is trapped completely. And somehow it is like a Vietnam redo.
Right.
They want to come out at any cost. So that's why it is happening. At any Taliban, despite the fact, as you pointed out, despite the fact that Taliban and US have completely diametric objectives,
Right.
but because Trump is in a hurry to come out of Afghanistan,
right.
this is why it is
That is
happening.
why it's happening. So a key question remains about the future of the country. So Afghanistan had an election in September, like you pointed out, and it's only recently, maybe 1 week ago, that the results of that election were actually declared because of the kind of internal disagreement on the issue of the results itself. There were allegations of fraud, and finally President Ghani was declared re-elected, although his opponent has claimed the election results are a fraud.
Yeah.
So on the one hand, we have a completely paralyzed political structure in Afghanistan. And on the other hand, we have the Taliban, which is almost at a historic high in terms of the amount of territory it's controlling. So in this context, do you think that if when the US troops leave, the possibility of Taliban again recapturing much more territory is higher?
I think so, given the fact that, as you rightly pointed out, today there are more than 20% of Afghan territories which are directly under control of Taliban, and there are more than additional 30% territories where the fight is going on between the government forces supported by US and NATO and Taliban. So almost half of Afghan territory is under dispute or under indirect Taliban control.
Right.
So if the US forces are withdrawing from Afghanistan, particularly on the point that any deal will give Taliban a legitimacy,
right,
will establish it as a legitimate force in Afghanistan,
right,
the chances of conflict, what we call war, is higher. Because so far, if you follow the trajectory of the talks, so-called talks which are happening, the Taliban has not recognized the other party in Afghanistan, which is Ashraf Ghani, or even his rival Abdullah, the government establishment forces. Since it does not recognize, and so far in the talks, there is no blueprint according to which there will be an attempt to fill the gap between what we call the establishment forces and Taliban. So none of this is clear. In that particular situation, if the US forces and NATO forces withdraw, the war looks like that it will intensify, and the conflict in Afghanistan is not going to get over soon.
So at least nearly close to 2 decades after the war and all this blood, we are basically, the whole circle is turning back, actually, so to speak.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. If you see, within the so-called establishment forces, if you see, after the publication of result, Abdullah has started claiming that he has won the election and he will form a parallel government. Before the announcement of the ceasefire, the interim ceasefire for 7 days between US and Taliban, he basically started implementing some of his policies, in fact, creating a kind of parallel government. So that, in case, let's assume that there is a deal between United States and Taliban tomorrow, what will be the position of Ashraf Ghani, one, and what will be the position of Abdullah? None of this is clear. Then there are women groups within Afghanistan. If you remember it, the war in Afghanistan by the US was justified. One of the main reasons for the justification was the condition of women under Taliban rule. The women under indirect Taliban control are already there are complaints of the kind of inhuman treatment they are going through, and the women movement within the government controlled areas are also very apprehensive about their future when Taliban is legitimized. Right. So all these questions are unresolved, and there is no attempt to address them in all these talks also.
Thank you so much, Abdul. That's all we have for this episode of Let's Talk. We'll be back tomorrow at 3 p.m. with the latest news developments. Until then, keep watching NewsClick.